Got involved through Roger Coles of Brisbane University, Queensland University. He got me into Sakalama, which is the bare rump-toothed bat, to do research in that one because it's critically endangered. Did a bit of work with his detector because he developed the Nanobat, which we're standing next to right now. Went rolling from there, and I've been recording bats ever since, really.
Also, what's the Nanobat all about?
So this is a ultrasound detector specifically made to detect bats. So it records at high quality. It uses a waterproof mic we've got here. You can leave overnight, you record bats and you analyse them the next day, sort of thing.
Why do you need to record the bats, and what can you tell by analysing them?
If you record them, and recording bats is a really good way to tell the species apart. So you might want to know in a specific area what's flying around here. So you put out a detector, leave it overnight, you look the next day and say, oh, where I put the detector, this species is flying around, that species is flying around. You know exactly what's flying around. It's sort of a little survey.
We just heard a playback of a recorded sound from a bat. Now, I understand that that's been altered from its ultra-high frequency. How do you go about listening to them if they are recorded in ultra-high frequency?
The calls that we heard before, they are severely slowed down, and to be able to hear them with our human ears, you don't actually hear them. You can if you want to, but you could look at a spectrogram, which is generated by a waveform file. So if you have a waveform file, which is this device spits out, you look at it, and then you can determine which species it is by the shape of the pulses, by the calls. So you don't actually listen to bats because that will take a lot of time. If you just take a glance look at a spectrogram, you might say, oh, that's that species because it is within a certain frequency range, and that might tell a lot about which species it is. And if there's similar species, there might be similar calls, but there's always telltale signs to tell them apart.
What could you tell from the sounds that were slowed down that we just heard?
It's difficult. It's more for letting people know what it sort of sounds like, because if you slow it down, then you lose all really data that you can use to say what species it is.
If we could hear it, you said it would be more staccato and more sped up.
Some bat species you could hear them, and for a white-striped free-tailed bat, and that one uses frequencies of 11 kilohertz, which is within our human hearing. So you can actually hear them hunting. It sounds like a metallic sort of ting ting when it's flying around, and you can tell when it's caught something because like tick 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 tick, you can hear a feeding buzz, and it stops, and you think, oh, it's caught something or it's screwed up.
What is it about bats that's intrigued you so much to bring you to Youngler?
Well, the way they see their surroundings using echolocation is just fascinating. It's just, there's all sorts of little cool things that you can see. And for instance, Myotis macropus uses long sweeps. You can actually see very close to the water when it produces a call, and then the echoes bouncing off the surface of the water, they cancel out some of the original calls, so you get a little bit of a sort of a dash sort of call, which is that's just fascinating. Myotis macropus, it's large-footed myotis, which is it's known to fly over the water 10 centimeters above the water, something like that. You can see them at a calm sort of creek or river, or stagnant pools, or little lakes or ponds.
What have you discovered here at Broken River?
I've discovered Myotis macropus, large-footed myotis, here at the Broken River. So there's a couple of areas where there's calm water, and they're flying around there. So, and there's heaps of other species I've found here too, but there's loads of bats flying around here, high-flying species. Every layer of the forest supports its own species of microbat almost.
You obviously do a lot of work at night. What's it like being a night owl?
Well, it's pretty good sometimes, because you just sometimes it's just a question of leaving the detector out there and picking it up in the morning. So you look at calls the next day. Although I do find it more enjoyable just to have a live feed, so you can actually hear them flying around. I sometimes bring that and just enjoy myself for a few hours.
How do you go about disguising yourself in those situations? I mean, are bats aware of your presence, and if so, does it bother them?
Pretty sure bats are aware of my presence here. It doesn't really seem to bother them at all, depending on the species, but some horseshoe bats that have found that they're flying straight past you and over your head or beside you, and they do little laps and just do frequent pass-bys, which is really cool. Yeah, they actually sometimes get bothered by the very high intensity light, so tend to avoid spotlighting them too much.
How much research did you do ahead of your visit? Were you aware of what you'd be encountering here?
I had a sort of rough idea which species would be here, but I've been mainly here to try to establish the fact that there are ghost bats here, because some specimens have been found here. A dead one was plucked off a barbed wire from a fence of a paddock nearby. Yeah, for me it was just a matter of trying to suss out if there's a ghost bats flying, confirming that.
What's so special about the ghost bats?
They're big and white. They're carnivores, so they're predators. So they pretty much whatever they can tackle, they'll eat. And beetles, little mammals, birds. There's been about 50 species of birds that have been recorded to be prey. So they're mostly small birds, ground dwelling. They eat other bats as well, so they're quite vicious.
When you said carnivore, I'm sorry, I had this image of one hanging off your neck.
So the image of most people would conjure up pretty easily, but they're pseudo vampiric bats. They are actually called. So, but they're not actually vampiric bats. You've got them in South America, but not here.
There are such things as vampire bats.
Yes, of course, yeah.
Well, how is your research being used?
I'm not actually aware at this point in time. I just wanted to get the results out, publish it,